how the heck do I get this thing manufactured?
Yeah, and I think manufacturing it's a scary, not a scary word, but by the time you're at the point where you have to think about manufacturing, it almost resets that I have no clue what I'm doing or where I'm going or how I'm doing it and all that stuff. And it is a bit daunting. And even for us who I feel like we're pretty far in the thing, I have manufacturers, you have manufacturers, you're still constantly evaluating, is there a better manufacturer? Is there somebody who can provide more product for you? But I think let's start right with the beginning of, I've got my product, I'm kind of ready, I have something ready to go. How do I even find a manufacturer?
Yeah. So first of all, a lot of people in the space of the hype around inventing, they'll say, oh, don't mess with manufacturing and all that complicated stuff. Just license it and get paychecks. And we talked about how that's kind of BS in the past. But people put a lot of emphasis on manufacturing and how it's so difficult or so scary. And first of all, let's demystify that. It's doable, right?
100%.
I mean, most of the crap that you and I do as far as communicating with manufacturers, we do on our phones. Like, get real. You can lay in bed and sort out issues with manufacturing. So back to your question, where do you get started? Personally, I started with Alibaba. Alibaba was the low-hanging fruit. And people will say, oh, don't you dare manufacture with Alibaba. And you're not manufacturing with Alibaba, are you? If I had a nickel for every time I heard that. And I lie and say, no, I am doing what I'm supposed to do, but I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. But odds are when you're starting out, you're dealing with such small quantities that you can't really go the traditional route and flex your muscles and get in the door with somebody, because people want to see manufacturing companies, they want to see big POs, big purchase orders. So when you're small, Alibaba gives you that flexibility to find somebody that will maybe just make 300 to 500 units for you.
So to be clear, are you getting manufactured by Alibaba, or you found your manufacturing through Alibaba?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the way it works is Alibaba is like the networking platform to connect consumers or ideas or just people looking to buy things wholesale. It connects the two parties. So on Alibaba, I found products that were for sale that are just pieces of crap, frankly, generic things. Could be anything, could be water bottles, whatever. And so what you do to find a good manufacturer, you find somebody making something similar to what you want to do, and then you basically slide into their DMs and you say, would you be willing to do something else? The fact that they're on Alibaba tells you that they're flexible and they're pretty much ready to be hit up to do different things. So I would say the first step with Alibaba, definitely find someone making similar products and then ask them if they'd be willing to try your design out. Now, pretty quickly, you have to vet them based on their communication skills, number one. So a lot of times the response you're going to get is can or sure, dear honey.
Yeah.
And that's fine. They're very they're nice people and be respectful, but you can tell pretty quick the ones that are pretty sharp with English or not. And it doesn't, I can tell you if they start with bad English, it doesn't get better. And sometimes they just completely misconstrue what you say. And you gotta sever the tie right away.
And you're gonna spend triple your time in trying to go back and forth and get your idea across and do that. And then at the end of the day, you're just not gonna be happy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is, not to put China in a box, but it is kind of customary in their culture to be yes men and yes women. They do want to help, and it's their nature to capture any sale, any deal they can. So you're going to hear can, yes, honey, yes, dear, all the time. And that's them being very polite. And they really are trying to help you out. But you got to look out for number one.
Well, and I think that makes me touch base on this. So like if let's say somebody out there came up with a strap product and it was a very simple strap product and they found a manufacturer on Alibaba that deals with straps, it's probably pretty safe to say that their yes means they could probably handle your strap. But if you have a product that has like 5 different components and maybe you have a spring in it and this, and you have a buckle and you have something, and they're like, yes, we can do it, then you should just be a little more cautious because they themselves are also going to have to source those other things around to be able to pull those together for your product.
Right.
So it's not just a simple yes, there's more to it.
Yeah. And there's a good question to ask right off the bat to this manufacturer is, are you a manufacturer, a trading company, or both?
Yeah.
What you want, in my opinion, is someone who's both. Because if it's a trading company, they're essentially a second step middleman. So what the trading company is good at is finding a rate to get the product from China to you efficiently. But what they're going to do is they're going to source the manufacturing. So now you've just added another step. And anytime you can eliminate a step, which this isn't always the case, but if you're going this route on Alibaba, try to keep as many fingers out of it as you can. You got to rely on people. You're going to have fingers in your business. Everybody's going to be getting a piece of the pie, but you've got to make sure it's necessary. Manufacturer, trading company. So what you want is someone who does both. They build it on site, they figure out the logistics, and they can ship it to your door because you don't know anything about freight right now. And they can get it to your door at a fair cost to where maybe you can get it to your door at $10 and sell it for $20 after fees and make your 50% margin, and you're good.
And that's something that to tell our listeners is they need to also be cognizant or respectful that you don't just send them your thing and then magically it appears and it comes back. Like when you do connect with a good manufacturer, they have to put a lot of effort into making 1 or 10 samples for you. It's like, especially when it comes down to bigger quantities, they're going to make molds and they're going to do things which cut down their time. But don't just think that just happens and don't think it's free and don't expect them to just do all this work for you on the other side. It's not magic. These people are putting a lot of work into that, and you should definitely be respectful of their time. Even, hey, that's why you're going to pay, let's say you sell your product for your end thing is going to be $5, but your first 10 pieces are going to be $100. It's $20 a piece. And you're like, why is that so expensive? It's because they're probably either hand making them or making them the best they can without all the molds. And you just have to know they're putting in that time and effort as well.
Yeah. More often than not, they're going to charge you like they'll say our standard prototype fee is $90 plus $40 shipping.
Yeah.
So even if they're making what eventually will be a $15 item, plan on spending $150 plus.
Yes.
And that's fair. That really is fair. They're spending a lot of time. They don't have a system in place. They will, and that's part of the prototyping process for them. But one thing I want to go back to is you don't always want to have this manufacturer make the entire thing. If you have a really awesome idea, which most of the time it's not, sorry, but sometimes you have a really awesome idea like turning water into wine, let's say, and you don't want to fully expose that to Alibaba because China, not knocking them, it's just their culture. When they see something that makes sense, they replicate it. So call it a knockoff, call it what you will, but that's what could happen. So one route I went was I found 4 different manufacturers that build me the components and ship them all to my warehouse where we assemble them. All of them are disconnected from one another. No one manufacturer understands how the full product works.
So there are benefits and negatives to that though, right?
Definitely.
So the benefits are?
The benefits are protecting your intellectual property. It's more reliable than a patent, even an international patent. And that's really the only big benefit. I'll be honest.
No, and especially I feel like you're even dealing that with now is you're starting to get these massive orders where having to assemble it is becoming a bit of a problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
You want to assemble in the USA. You want to do as much in the USA as you can, but spoiler alert, it's really hard. And if you've listened to past podcasts, we've touched on like, be realistic. Like no one's going to do this for cheap in the USA.
They're not. So I went to 4 people just because I want to be in the USA and I really want to do this and I want to try hard to do that. The problem is people won't pay the amount for my product that it would take for me to manufacture it in the USA, and it just wouldn't be even a feasible product.
Yeah. It would 4x your retail costs just right off the jump.
Yeah.
So where were we?
We're just talking about the benefits and the negatives to piecing it out like that. So I think intellectual property is a big one, but also as you grow bigger, your brand starts to get known. People associate you with your brand. I feel like it then becomes more important to get it completely manufactured where you can send massive shipments elsewhere and meet orders, opposed to, because if somebody really wants to understand your product, I think within 30 minutes they could cut it open, figure it out, and do that. But it makes sense in the beginning. That's not a bad idea. And just also, it doesn't hurt to get NDAs. Again, we were fans of NDAs with some of these manufacturers. Most people, if they're legit, have zero problem. It's not a hush hush word to say, hey, can we just sign an NDA? And that just gives you one more level of protection.
Very standard practice.
Yeah.
And personally, people think, oh God, now I got to get a lawyer. I honestly think ChatGPT writes a better NDA than I've ever seen anyone else write.
Yeah.
And you can get it down to the finite details. Don't be afraid to ask 3, 4, and 5 times to include different things. An NDA is an NDA. There's no signature at the bottom that this was written by a Harvard lawyer. It's just legal language, and it's only as strong as your ability to defend it. So have ChatGPT throw that together. And you're absolutely right, man. Like when you start to scale, it's really hard to stay. It's really hard not to just give in and go full Chinese manufacturer.
Yep.
What you have to choose between is you want to make your customers happy. What is more important? I serve a few who like the little assembled in the USA badge, even though the components are coming from China. We all know that.
Right.
And it's assembled in the USA, but how involved is that? Or is that benefit better than satisfying hundreds of thousands of customers because you can get the product moving?
That's it.
And the assembly will be a bottleneck. You can scale it up, but it's going to be an expensive bottleneck. So, yeah, that's when you need to transition into full Chinese manufacturer. And you're counting on that you're the brand to go to now. And that's why you're less afraid to expose your idea to China.
Right. And I think just to let everyone know, China isn't the only option. In both of our cases, it happens to be the best option. But, there's Mexico, which has great manufacturing. India has manufacturing. And then there's a bunch of places.
I just learned Poland is a pretty big manufacturer.
For Europe, right? It's almost a hub for Europe. And that's something good to know, too, is I think even in your case, that some people are really opposed to seeing made in China. And I know, we're kind of used to it as Americans. The Europeans are pretty anti seeing that right now, and to the point where they're like, we can't distribute this product if that's on the package. So Poland, which oddly is a manufacturing hub and has a really good trade agreement with the United States as well as all throughout Europe. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say it's cheaper, but it's viable, and they will create a little bit better quality. I don't know that for a fact, but that's what they say. And I would think so. Usually things that come from Europe are better quality.
Yeah.
So, you're right. It's not just China. And that's probably a pretty good point to stress right now with the turmoil between us, Russia, Ukraine, China, that whole deal that's going on. This isn't, we're not experts in politics, but you got to kind of have your ears sensitive to, okay, things are a little fishy.
Yeah.
What's my contingency plan?
That's right.
Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, you have X amount of units being manufactured. It probably doesn't matter in the beginning, but when you have, I have a crate coming or 2 crates or whatever it is, and something goes down and you don't have that, plan B is a good option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mexico is great. It's not going to be cheaper, but it's going to be closer. Those relationships aren't as common. When you get on Alibaba, it's pretty much all about China. There's a few things, India, you might see Turkey, but there's going to be very few manufacturers to communicate with. It's going to really push you to go to China because Alibaba is a Chinese company.
Yeah.
So if you want to go a different route, you're going to have to kind of investigate. And I want you to take over on that, Marcus, on how to go a different route to finding somebody.
I will. Just before I hit that, I want to hit on 2 things also for our listeners to be realistic about. Communication with like you said, communication is key, obviously, with that. But even good communication with a manufacturer, just expect it not to go like one day, then the next day, and they get back to the next day. There are so many holidays. I learned it took me 2 years. And I would say most of that time was in waiting for random things like, it's the Chinese New Year. We shut down for 3 weeks or 2 weeks or a month. And you just have to be patient. Don't lose your momentum and be patient and then also shipping times. I've got this idea. I finally found that. Am I going to get it in a week? No, you're going to get it in 3 months. And you can cut that time down by doing air freight versus cargo on a ship, maybe by a couple weeks. But you're going to pay more for it, and that's a good thing to know. So if you know you need to get product and you're chomping at the bit, you can pay a little bit more, eat it, get it a couple weeks earlier, but you're not getting it in a week.
No.
Like and your first couple times, you just have to have that lag. Don't try not to set yourself a date that you want to get this thing out and do that, but don't set it so hard that you have everything relying on it, because that may be easily missed.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of the time is going to come in. People hear like, oh, it took you 3 years to develop that product. And they picture you burning a candlelight at midnight every night for 3 years. No, it's a lot of hurry up and wait.
It is.
So don't think you're going to be overloaded with work and you have to be a workaholic to get this done. You just got to be patient.
That's it. You have to be consistent and patient. But getting back to how I found my version, you went to Alibaba, you did it yourself. I didn't even know. I couldn't even think that much at the time, but I had a friend who had friends who invented drop stop. So it's like a device. It kind of looks like a sausage. It goes next to your seat and it drops down in and your seatbelt pops through it. And so whenever you have like French fries and junk and change and your cell phone and it drops out of your pocket, it doesn't fall down between the seat. It hits that.
Genius.
These guys are super successful. They've been around. They've been humping it. They gave me some great advice. And one of the connections that they gave me was I don't even, you want to call it a middleman or a
broker, right?
A broker. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And that's City Global. And there are probably quite a few versions of City Global out there. I felt very safe and confident with them, good communication skills. And what that is they have the already working relationship with people in China and manufacturers. So for somebody like me, I don't have to worry about communicating with China, figuring out, what I'm going to do. Is it going to be safe? Is my product going to be stolen? Could it be? Yes. But where this part benefits me is they have such a good working relationship. I think they have like 100 plus clients or whatever it is, that those manufacturers that they work with would absolutely not risk their relationship by leaking my product, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where it also comes in handy is quality control. And I think you can attest to this, that quality control is a huge thing. Like if you're working from somebody on Alibaba, you get 100 units, 25 of them are bad, you might be able to negotiate some of those back or whatever it is, but it's not like they're just like, yeah, we're just going to, you got to kind of assume some of that liability. For me, what I loved about my scenario is I had my first 1,000 shipped, and there's a whole like 10-page quality control PDF that I got that shows, we found 124 that we didn't like, that didn't pass. We're kicking them back. Instantly, they are eating whatever costs go into that.
Awesome.
We will get to that, and you'll learn that value as you go. Maybe in the initial you're nervous. You're like, oh, I don't want to give a percentage. Here's the deal. I don't know how much they take out of what I pay. I don't care.
Don't know, don't care.
I don't care, and you can be super anal about that, and you can find out and you can do that. But here's what I know. I know I'm okay with the price that I'm paying to get it in my hand. It works for me. And I know that they have my back and that they're handling all the junk that I don't want to, I don't know how to, and specifically like all those issues are out of my hands. And I think that's well worth whatever that, who knows, 30%, 20%, I don't know that answer. It doesn't matter.
Really doesn't matter.
It doesn't. Yeah.
No, I love that. I love that you touched on that because, you and I were very DIY guys.
Yeah.
And one thing we talked about in early podcasts is don't just think that you can call up 1-800-INVENT-SO-and-SO and they're going to cradle you like a baby and take care of everything and make you rich. But there are parties where it's okay to just eat it because your time is going to get really, really valuable as this goes. Do what you do best and sub the rest. I've said it before, but the broker route is awesome. And to go back and give you guys a little bit of perspective on the difference between Marcus and I, maybe on why you did that. Just to share tidbit of financials. When I started my product, I asked my wife, can I pull out $3,500 to try to get something going? And she was like, sure, sounds like a fun hobby. Go for it. That's nothing to sneeze at. And I get that. And I think your budget was a little bit higher to where you were ready to, you were ready to dive in.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So Marcus had a little bit more money to play with, and he didn't want to play any games. He wanted to get right into it. So Marcus was really certain about what he wanted to do. So you have to reflect on yourself as a listener. Am I just piddling? Am I, and that's fine. If you're just starting a little chop shop in your garage, putting things together, piddle around, man. Spend a couple hundred, couple thousand here and there. If you're diehard and you've prototyped and it's a banger of an idea, and maybe you're late in your career, you can pull 40, 60 grand out of that 401k and it's not going to hurt too bad. Find a good broker.
It is. And I want to touch base on also a little key. This might not jumping the gun. It's all within the manufacturing thing, but a really good bit of advice that you gave me, and also the manufacturer gave me, and also the City Global gave me, is my first order was actually for 10,000 units. And this is maybe a little common knowledge, but the larger quantity you can order gives you a lower price per piece, right?
Sure.
That's pretty standard issue. So it's give or take. So I'm like I am prepared to pay for 10,000 units, which is actually 20,000 anchors for me, but it's 10,000 with the bag.
2 packs.
The 2 packs, that's right. And the bit of advice was he said, pay the deposit on 10,000 to show that you're ready to rock and they have that money and they can buy the materials. Don't have 10,000 manufactured. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't understand. He said, because this is your first product. You're happy with your version. It works great. But within the first 500 sales or first 1,000 sales, you might get feedback that makes you want to change one small thing on that anchor. And I'm like, okay. He goes, if that's the case, you now have, 9,000 manufactured pieces that you're not quite as happy about anymore. And now you're trying to sell those and you're like, oh man, that's just a little less than what I want. In my case, what I've done is I have 1,000 already. I have another 2,000 coming. That leaves me 7,000 that if something needs to change, I haven't eaten that and I can make those changes within that. I've already paid for it. I'm getting my lower quantity discount and I'm able to then get those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of feeds into what we're going to talk about the next episode, and I'm just going to touch on it now. It's BS. That is bold bleep to be exact. And that one thing I did that just made my wife cringe was I agreed to a $110,000 purchase order in the very beginning. It wasn't a contract. It wasn't serious, but the manufacturer said, how about this? How about we lock you in at this price and you agree to a giant purchase order, but we'll stretch it out over a year. So I'm like, yeah, sign me up. I wasn't signing a contract. I thought what could happen, but that goes into what you're saying. Be willing to talk a big game to get things going and get fair prices established, but it doesn't mean you can't back out or pivot or what have you. At the end of the day, they don't have access to your bank account. You pay them incrementally, and that's totally at your discretion. They can't take money from you just because you said you'd give it to them.
Right.
So I think you utilize that well with that method. And it gives you the ability to pivot when you want to change that opening an 1/8 inch more. You can do it for little or no cost.
Yeah.
And you can happily sell. You said it, like stuck with 7,000 pieces that you're not that excited to sell. Let me tell you, it is hard to make good social media content about something you don't want to sell.
Yeah.
It is really daunting. It like I've spent a lot of time just pit in my stomach turning because I had a product that needed to be changed. But if I don't sell this 500 in my warehouse, I'll go broke. I'll be out of business. You have no choice. So be very careful.
Yeah, and just going along with that larger amount, and I think we touched based on our first or third episode, was that manufacturers, if you show commitment to them, will also be willing to put in some time to help you figure out or flatten some of the kinks in your product. So, I think in my case, I have one design change I'd like to do. It's not a must. I'd like to, and now that they know I've already prepaid for my 10,000, I'm committed to that. They're like, yeah, let's brainstorm that for the next 10,000 or for the next whatever it is. So don't be afraid to if you're right there, but you have one little thing that needs help. Manufacturers also know how to manufacture. So if you're having a little hump that you're having issues with, maybe they can knock that out pretty quickly. Just don't overuse anybody. Like, it's a lot of work. You think about racking your brain for your prototypes and problem solving. There's somebody on the other end of that phone or email that has to do the same thing. They may know more than you, but these people, their time is equally as important. So just when it comes to commitments and things like that, try to be conscious and respectful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So towards the end of this episode, let's for the third part, let's call it, of this episode, let's just go through like steps 1 through 5 or 10, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Of what this process might look like and how long between each step.
Okay.
So step number 1, approach and manufacture.
Yeah.
You can expect to get a reply within 1 to 3 business days.
I think so.
You can expect to, if it's the broker, you can expect to have a sit-down meeting within a week or 2.
Mm-hmm.
If it's Alibaba, they'll respond right away, and they're going to say, "Yes, dear, please send drawings." So right there, you're looking at a maximum of 2-3 weeks, or with Alibaba, a couple days.
Mm-hmm.
Now you need to send them good drawings, which we've gone over. Go back to past podcasts on how to put together good drawings. You don't have to be an engineer, depending on the product. They're going to have some questions. And these questions, you're going to talk to them at 9:00 at night. And then if you're like me, you're going to nod off, and then you just lost a day. So that's why this can take a lot of time. So in the morning you see, they need to know if this is millimeters or inches. And then you realize you screwed up. Adjust your drawings, send a brand new drawing. This is millimeter. And then, so day after day after day, you're going to have little minute changes.
Be patient.
Be very patient. So that's kind of steps 1 and 2 there is getting that contact established. Step 3 is they're going to say, okay, we can prototype it. And prototyping, we talked about, it's going to take them a couple of weeks to make it, and then they'll ship it 7-day air probably, and you'll get it maybe in 3 or 4 weeks.
And just remember that those prototypes, maybe 1 to 10 units or whatever they're going to do, is going to be substantially more expensive than what you should expect for your actual product.
Yeah, just don't nickel and dime on that stuff.
Nope.
That is such a waste of time, and it's going to make you look so amateur.
Yep.
A sample is a sample. And that's just the way it is. So, and if you nickel and dime on that, they're going to know that this guy's going to jerk me around forever, and they're probably not going to be as motivated to respond to you very fast.
Yep.
So, be very polite, be very respectful of their time, because they have a lot to do too. And they will be very attentive to you. Don't take that for granted. Now, 3, they give you back the prototype. It's probably going to suck. If it doesn't suck, it's probably because you went with the broker who really understands how to communicate to the factory. For me, my first prototype kind of sucked. That's okay. Now you understand how they interpret what you say. And it's no different than you or me. If I tell you an idea verbally and then I have you turn around and draw it on that whiteboard behind you, you're going to draw a cat when I was talking about a dog. That's just the way the game of telephone goes. And now okay, I need to be more direct about this, or I just suck at explaining this. Go back, redo it. So now you're looking at a couple months because you're going back and forth with prototypes. Disapprove, remake, disapprove, remake. That's like the big chunk, step number 3. Do you want to take over step number 4?
Yeah, just on that same vein, I was just going to say, even better than sending drawings and talking about drawings is if you have a working, usable prototype that you're happy about, that you did create, that's even better to get that in there. They can do their own measurements. They can check that stuff. Just know that if you only own one prototype, you only made one, you may not see it back only because you're sending it way away. It's a big thing. Yeah. So try to get yourself a couple usable working prototypes if you're going to be doing that. Step 4. So I think you're happy with what they've come up with. Now you're going to talk about quantities. They're going to talk about times. They're going to talk about all that stuff. So, hey, I'm the manufacturer. How many units are you going to do? And you're going to say, well, I don't know. I was thinking of maybe doing 500 units. And they're like, okay, we can send you a price for 500 units. You're going to be paying quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
You say, hey, how about doing, 10,000 units? Man, you're going to see your costs come down for, by dollars or whatever it may be. And just so you know, it's hard to fathom what 50 cents means without, putting it into context. But in my case, so if I order 10,000 units of something and I get 50 cents less, that's $5,000. Right off the bat, that's $5,000 less. And you're like, wow, I mean, it becomes a lot of money very quickly. So your manufacturer, you guys have decided, I'm going to do 5,000 units. It's going to cost me $5, and you're going to get, it's going to be told to you that that's like shipped in hand. So you're basically in your hand for $5 is whatever you've asked them to produce, and that's what you're going to get.
Now, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
5,000 units at $5 a unit, that's 25 grand, right?
That is.
What if you don't have that much money, Marcus?
Yeah. Well, then you're going to have to find a way to get that money. I mean,
Get that money.
Get that money.
All right, well, that answer sucked. I'll give you a better one.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay 25 grand that day.
No, not that day, of course.
So leverage that.
Yeah. You might pay like I told you, I put down a deposit for the materials so they know I'm serious
And
for
how
10,000.
like
It was 50. It was I put down, I'll just be open with you with your cost. I put down 15 grand for my 10,000 unit deposit.
So is that like 25% of the total bill or 10%? Or?
Hold on. So it's going to be about about 60 something. So what is that? That's it's about a quarter of, that's right. About a quarter of the cost, 25%.
Okay.
And that's my commitment to them. It gets them all the metal and all the pieces that I need, but we're holding off on that. So deposit. And then I will pay when I get it.
Okay. So if you want to leverage higher quantities, don't go insane and say 100,000 units, but definitely say, hey, give me a price on 3,000, 5,000, and 8,000 units.
That's it.
And then when they give you a good price, say, that's great. But according to my investors' provisions, I can only approve an order of 1,000 right now.
Mm-hmm.
So given that you'll do it for $5 at 8,000 pieces, I'll accept doing it for $6.25 at 1,000 pieces for now.
Mm-hmm.
And really what that means is I'm broke as shit. But they don't need to know that. So you can leverage that, or you can go for all 8,000 pieces, and that's going to cost you like $40,000. Say I can put 10% down on 40,000 pieces. So 10 grand, $4 grand down. Excuse me. So you put down $4,000. They start making 10,000 pieces, and you got a month to kind of scramble. Before they ship it, they're going to ask for the remainder of the balance, and then you can play another little game. You can say, kind of like what you're doing, like, just so I'm sure there's no quality issues, I want you to air ship me 100 units. And then kick the can down the road. You'll get those 100 units. I'm still in testing. Give me some time. And then you say, this is great. I'll take the rest of them. And then maybe by that time you'll have the balance. So the bottom line is, I'm not going to tell you guys how to use your money. Bottom line is, you don't have to have it all that day.
You don't. And that's also the difference between you and your way and then mine having like a City Global or the broker is, I've already got my first 1,000. I've paid my initial amount, but I haven't paid for the product yet. And that's part of the relationship that they have with the manufacturer. And City Global knows my funding, what do you call it? My bank account. They know how much money I have. So they're more spongy with having to come up with things right away. They are almost more dead set on making sure the product is good and exactly what we want, and not charging me for it yet until we're like, yep, this is it. We're happy and we're ready to go. So those are the benefits and again, the negatives, but you don't have to have all of it now. You definitely need your money by the time you get that product in your hand.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So that's like that kind of shows step number 4 is you're getting the quantities and the money figured out, how we're going to make this happen. So that's pretty cut and dry. Now they're going to make it and they're going to keep you updated. It's going to take probably a week or two longer than they said it was going to. That's fine. And then they ship it. They ship it. They're going to ship it by air or sea, as you said. You're probably going to want to go sea if you want to see any kind of return on your investment. So wait the extra month. Sea is generally 25 days. Sometimes it's 40 days, which should be a little bit cheaper. I usually go with 25-day sea shipping, and it's reasonable. And then you have your product.
That's the down low of it, and just get that working relationship with the manufacturer, and they'll work with you quite a bit if you just show them that you're committed and they know that you're going to pay on time, and kind of vice versa, right? I mean, you did that as well.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, I think that pretty much does it. Is there anything else you want to touch on?
I'm trying to think. I mean, don't be afraid. Manufacturing is a big thing. It's a big C, and there are a million manufacturers. Grant was right, where they're very quick to say yes. It's not a trying to screw you out of thing. Yes, it's, hey, we have the ability to do it. Yes, and we want your business. Yes, but just know that it's important to know that they can do that, or you're going to waste a lot of time in them trying to source stuff on their side. And you don't want two middlemen on their end doing the communication. You want yours most direct line. You have two choices. You do it yourself, or you do it the way I did it, which is finding a broker who has all those relationships as well. Yeah.
Okay, great. You guys are probably going to have questions. It's really hard to cover absolutely everything in one episode, but we want to keep these kind of concise. Feel free to send us an email. You'll find the email in the show notes. If you have questions, we can always do a part 2. That's no problem, because I really don't expect to address absolutely everything. I'd love to, but we'll see how we do. That's pretty much going to wrap it up for today, guys. I really want to thank you for tuning in. Please don't forget to follow the show, like and subscribe on YouTube. And remember that we took the punches so that you don't have to. This is a passion for us, and our motivation is to make sure that your life is a little bit easier than ours was. So with that being said, we want to thank you guys, and we'll see you on the next one.